Right, here we go again. In actual experience, institutions generally manifest themselves in collectivities containing considerable numbers of people. It is theoretically important, however, to emphasize that the institutionalizing process of reciprocal typification would occur even if two individuals began to interact de novo, that is, from nothing. Institutionalization is incipient in every social situation continuing in time. I mean, it's always struggling to get out. It's always there. Let us assume that two persons from entirely different social worlds begin to interact. By saying persons, we presuppose that the two individuals have formed selves, something that could, of course, have occurred only in a social process. We are thus, for the moment, excluding the cases of Adam and Eve or of two feral children meeting in a clearing of a primeval jungle. But we are assuming that the two individuals arrive at their meeting place from social worlds that have been historically produced in segregation from each other, separate from each other, and that the interaction therefore takes place in a situation that has not been institutionally defined for either of the participants. It may be possible to imagine a man Friday, they're invoking the figure from Robinson Crusoe, joining our matchstick canoe builder on his desert island, and to imagine that the former as a Papuan and the latter as an American. In that case, however, it is likely that the American will have read, or at least heard, about the story of Robinson Crusoe, which will introduce a measure of predefinition of the situation, at least for him. Let us then simply call our two persons A and B. As A and B interact, in whatever manner, typifications will be produced quite quickly. A watches B perform or do something. He attributes motives to B's actions, because that's what humans do. And seeing the actions recur, he or she typifies the motives as recurrent. As B goes on performing, A is soon able to say to himself or to herself, "Aha, there he goes again." Now think about whether you do this or not with the people in your lives. You know what they're doing, right? You see them doing what they usually do, or what they've done very often. At the same time, A may assume that B is doing the same thing with regard to him, observing and assuming there's motives there and going, "Aha, there A goes again." From the beginning, both A and B assume this reciprocity of typification. In the course of their interaction, these typifications will be expressed in specific patterns of conduct, in specific practices, in specific actions or activities. That is, A and B will begin to play roles vis-a-vis each other, in relation to each other. They'll begin to play roles or interpret roles. This will occur even if each continues to perform actions different from those of the other. The possibility of taking the role of the other will appear with regard to the same actions performed by both. That is, A will inwardly or mentally appropriate B's reiterated roles and make them the models for his own role playing. For example, B's role in the activity of preparing food is not only typified as such by A, but enters as a constitutive element into A's own food preparation role. Thus, a collection of reciprocally typified actions will emerge, habitualized for each in roles, some of which will be performed separately and some in common. While this reciprocal typification is not yet institutionalization, it is clear that institutionalization is already present in nucleo, which is to say, in principle, in this case. At this stage, one may ask what gains accrue to the two individuals from this development. The most important gain is that each will be able to predict the other's actions. Right? Think about how important that is and how upsetting it is when you don't predict correctly the actions of another person. Concomitantly, the interaction of both becomes predictable. This is so crucial. When people do unpredictable things, we don't know how to handle it. The "there he goes again" becomes a "there we go again." This relieves both individuals of a considerable amount of tension, mental, psychological tension. They save time and effort, not only in whatever external tasks they might be engaged in separately or jointly, but in terms of their respective psychological economies. Their life together is now defined by a widening sphere of taken-for-granted routines, which isn't always the best thing, but for society, it kind of is. Many actions are possible on a low level of attention. Driving, right? Living with someone, right? Child rearing, right? How'd school go today? Fine? Okay, good. Now I can get back to my video game. Many actions are possible on a low level of attention. Each action of one is no longer a source of astonishment and potential danger to the other. Instead, much of what goes on takes on the triviality of what to both will be everyday life. This means that the two individuals are constructing a background, in the sense discussed before, which we didn't read, don't worry about it, which will serve to stabilize both their separate actions and their interaction. Actually, I should explain. The background is just what everybody takes for granted, right? For example, borrowing from the philosopher John Searle, who we will read later, you go into a hamburger joint, right, and you ask for a hamburger, and you expect it to be a particular size. You might ask for a small hamburger, you might ask for a big hamburger. But in any case, it's going to be, it's going to fit into your hand, right? It's not going to be this massive thing the size of a pizza for 7 people. Okay, that's the back. You don't have to say that. They don't have to ask you that. They might ask, do you want fries with that? But they're not going to ask you, do you want a giant pizza-size hamburger? No, because everybody knows that hamburgers are sort of this size or this size, but there's not much variation there. The two individuals constructing a background that will serve to stabilize both their separate actions and their interaction. The construction of this background, right? Think about love. Right? This is a difficult one because everybody thinks they understand love in the same way. And so people say, I love you, and people think they know what they mean, but they don't. Right? And you've probably had experience with that. The construction of this background of routine, in turn, makes possible a division of labor between them, opening the way for innovations which demand a higher level of attention. The division of labor and the innovations will lead to new habitualizations, further widening the background common to both individuals. In other words, the social world will be in the process of construction, containing within it the roots of an expanding institutional order. Generally, all actions repeated once or more tend to be habitualized to some degree, just as all actions observed by another necessarily involve some typification on his part. However, for the kind of reciprocal typification just described to occur, there must be a continuing social situation in which the habitualized actions of two or more individuals interlock. If there's no continuing social situation, things get a bit wacky, right? When everybody's locked down, there's no social interaction, things might get a bit wacky. Which actions are likely to be reciprocally typified in this manner? The answer is those actions that are relevant to both A and B within their common situation. The areas likely to be relevant in this way will, of course, vary in different situations. Some will be those facing A and B in terms of their previous biographies. Others may be the result of the natural, pre-social circumstances of the situation. What will, in all cases, have to be habitualized is the communication process between A and B, right? Language. Labor, sexuality, and territoriality are other likely foci of typifications and habitualization. In these various areas, the situation of A and B is paradigmatic of the institutionalization occurring in larger societies. Let us push our paradigm one step further and imagine that A and B have children. At this point, the situation changes qualitatively. The appearance of a third party, a child, changes the character of the ongoing social interaction between A and B, and it will change even further as additional individuals continue to be added. The institutional world, which existed in statu nascendi, right? It was being born, it was growing. In the original situation of A and B, is now passed on to others. In this process, institutionalization perfects itself. The habitualizations and typifications undertaken in the common life of A and B, formations that until this point still had the quality of ad hoc or extemporaneous conceptions of two individuals, now become historical institutions. With the acquisition of historicity, these formations also acquire another crucial quality, or more accurately, perfect a quality that was incipient as soon as A and B began the reciprocal typification of their conduct. This quality is objectivity, right? Hardness, materiality, right? Almost naturality or naturalness. This means that the institutions that have now been crystallized, for instance, the institution of paternity as it is encountered by the children, are experienced as existing over and beyond the individuals who happen to embody them at that moment. Right? There's something else there, it seems like. It's not just people doing things, there's something real, some kind of structure, some kind of object, some kind of concreteness there. This is objectivity. In other words, the institutions are now experienced as possessing a reality of their own, as if they weren't made by people. A reality that confronts the individual as an external and coercive fact. Okay, we're going to stop this one right here because it's the end of a paragraph.